You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
There it is, the exact moment Trump's FBI director claims he simultaneously doesn't know how many times Trump appears in the Epstein files,
I don't know the number.
while somehow knowing with absolute certainty what the number isn't.
But it's not that.
And the reason he collapses under his own testimony is simple. He has been locked inside of a double bind, a devastating trap that we'll highlight and teach throughout this episode.
Did you close the files or keep reading?
This is what transparency looks like, folks, just not in the way that this administration promised.
Republicans could get Epstein's list out now? Like, how would that process work?
Simple. One subpoena to the FBI. Give me the list. Oh, you don't want to give me the list and you're going to break the law and commit contempt of Congress? We're going to take your money.
Indeed, the only real transparency here is how blatantly they're refusing to release the very files they campaigned on making public.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is not to engage in political innuendo.
Why hello, my fellow apes. I hope you are well. You're about to watch Kash Patel, former lawyer, conspiracy podcaster, and now, somehow, the director of the FBI, unleash one of the most spectacular self-immolations in congressional testimony history. In the space of minutes, he'll maintain that he's both thoroughly reviewed and somehow never actually read the Epstein files, argue that numbers are nothing more than misleading factors,
The number is a total misleading factor.
and present himself as the defender of trafficked children, while refusing to examine the evidence about the people responsible. Yes, really. This is the timeline we're in, people.
Reduce the amount of children that are being trafficked and the number
It
of
sounds like
pedophiles that
those
we've
children
arrested
being
is
trafficked would
record high.
appreciate the director reviewing the files.
The man challenging him in this committee hearing is Eric Swalwell, a representative from California with an extraordinary grasp of and ability to execute a brutally effective rhetorical trap known as the double bind. So strap in, because we're about to dissect how Eric transforms a simple question about reading files into a complete annihilation of credibility. And it is absolutely beautiful.
Director, the first time you saw Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files. Did you close the files or keep reading?
I have reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
Right out of the gate, Eric begins his line of questioning with a trap. Kash, did you close the files or keep reading?
Did you close the files or keep reading?
Now notice how this creates two equally damaging options, with each path leading somewhere that Kash desperately doesn't want to go. If he closed them, then this entails willful ignorance and gross dereliction of duty. Here's the FBI director who turns away from evidence when it becomes politically inconvenient. But if he kept reading, well, that means he possesses detailed knowledge about Trump's connections to Epstein that he's now concealing from Congress. What a phenomenal question, huh? Here's our first double bind, when someone traps another between two responses that both lead to undesirable outcomes. Let me give you a lighter example from the TV show Friends to illustrate how this works.
If I win, you do not move to Paris.
Okay. All right, Joe, you remember the rules. Heads I win, tails you lose.
Just flip.
Not tails!
Damn it!
Alright, that's obviously a silly example, but you get the point. There's no way for Joey to win the coin toss. The game is rigged from the start.
You remember the rules. Heads I win, tails you lose.
Now, in Kash's case, the stakes are infinitely higher. Any direct response to Eric's framing admits either negligence or cover-up.
Did you close the files or keep reading?
Really appreciate that for a moment. The trap is so exquisite precisely because it's inescapable through any answer. So, he has to be evasive. But here's where it gets even worse for Kash. Because the question is directly about Trump, answering it would expose what he knows, and that means that he can't fall back on the usual FBI protocol or national security deflections without looking like he's shielding his own boss. When Eric says,
The first time you saw Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files.
he locks Kash into a specific moment of discovery. This makes any abstract bureaucratic language sound exactly like it is. Evasion rather than prudence.
I have reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
Here, Kash attempts to sidestep, positioning himself as only partially informed, without admitting either that he stopped reading or that he finished and knows everything. But this move fails catastrophically. Consider what his non-answer actually accomplishes. By refusing to say whether he closed the files or kept reading, Kash signals clear evasion to everyone watching. We all know that he's dodging the question, yet simultaneously, the admission that he hasn't reviewed the entirety concedes a different kind of failure.
Not the entirety of the files.
After all, if Trump's name appears in the files, wouldn't a responsible FBI director ensure that he's reviewed all relevant materials? And the response continues to cause more unintentional damage to Kash. He can't claim that the files are too voluminous or complex without implying that the Trump-Epstein connection is extensive. He can't claim that he had someone else handle the review without admitting that he personally avoided the information. He can't assert that he read everything without answering Eric's original question about what he found. Every escape route is blocked. So, what Eric's accomplished here goes beyond catching Kash in a contradiction. Kash is demonstrating the precise behavior he once condemned in others.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean,
Oh,
there's...
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
Well, the Epstein Black Book, like on day one.
On day one, roll out the Black Book.
It's hypocritical in a way that's immediately recognizable to anyone who followed his rise to power. And here's the thing, this is just the first trap. Eric is about to spring 3 more double binds, each one tighter than the last, until Kash contradicts himself so completely there's nowhere left to hide. But first, on the topic of media framing, a story caught my attention this morning. US judge blocks Trump administration from suspending food aid benefits. I came across this thanks to Ground News's Blind Spot feature, a brilliant tool on their homepage that reveals stories being dramatically underreported by either the left or the right. This allows me to investigate my blind spot so I can see a complete picture of what's happening in the real world. Ground News shows that it's been covered by 676 outlets. And here's what's peculiar. Left-leaning sources make up 33% of the coverage, while right-leaning outlets account for just 13%. You can follow along at ground.news/rationality. PBS NewsHour, a left-leaning outlet with very high factuality, headlines it, "Uncertainty weighs on SNAP recipients as shutdown drags into new month." Their framing centers on the human impact, tens of millions of Americans facing uncertainty about food assistance. They emphasize that even if the administration complies, there will likely still be a temporary lapse in benefits. Now contrast that with News Addicts, a far-right source with low factuality, which screams, "Breaking news, Obama judge forces Trump's hand with rogue shutdown ruling." Notice the loaded language. They don't mention SNAP recipients at all. Instead, they frame it as an Obama judge making a rogue ruling, suggesting the decision is illegitimate. Their coverage positions Trump as a victim of judicial overreach rather than discussing the 42 million Americans who need food assistance. Same judges, same ruling, entirely different universes. Where PBS NewsHour focuses on uncertainty faced with struggling families, News Addicts frames it as a partisan judge forcing Trump's hand. One outlet leads with human consequences, the other with political grievance. This is exactly why Ground News has become essential, revealing how political bias doesn't just spin facts, it determines which facts even matter. Ground News shows you which outlets to trust and which require scrutiny. Right now, they're offering 40% off their Vantage plan at ground.news/rationality or scan the QR code on screen. Your subscription supports this channel while giving you balanced, transparent news coverage. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting balanced journalism.
I have reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
You haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files?
Personally, no.
This is already a joy to watch, huh? Like a dog with a bone, Eric latches onto Kash's evasiveness with his follow-up question, stripping away the bureaucratic fog with a sharp binary. So, you haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files, forcing an on-record admission.
You haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files?
This masquerades as a request for clarity, but it functions as a tightening noose. By eliminating all the wiggle room, Eric is converting vagueness into a verifiable failure of duty. The question is polite, it's procedural, and it's absolutely lethal. Answering yes or no both reinforce Eric's framing. The Kash either neglected his duty or is now concealing what he's learned. A neat trick, right? In fact, it's our second double bind, hidden behind a question that appears to offer a safe out.
You haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files?
So, Kash admits that he hasn't read the files, but what about that extra word that he slipped in? Personally.
Personally, no.
That word is doing enormous defensive work. It's Kash's attempt to have it both ways, to suggest that he's adequately informed through subordinate briefings while maintaining distance from the radioactive details. Think of it like a mob boss who never personally sees the bodies, but knows exactly where they're buried. Here's the game he's playing in clear terms. If pressed on specifics, like how many times Trump's name appears, or in what context, he can claim ignorance. I didn't personally review those sections.
Personally, no.
But if challenged on his competence as FBI director, he can claim that he's been properly briefed by his team. It's bureaucratic gymnastics at its finest. Except, no one is buying it. Especially not Eric. Let's watch what happens next.
You're the director of the FBI. This is the largest sex trafficking case the FBI has ever been a part of. Buck stops at the top, and your testimony today is you have not reviewed all the files.
So Kash has chosen his poison, deciding to admit to ignorance. And Eric immediately exploits this by invoking the buck stops at the top, Harry Truman's famous accountability principle, to expose this ignorance as a glaring breach of his responsibilities. In short, Eric is stacking magnifiers to elevate the stakes. Largest sex trafficking case gets elevated as the largest sex trafficking case the FBI has ever been a part of, with the implication hanging in the air like a fart at a funeral.
This is the largest sex trafficking case the FBI has ever been a part of.
If this is the biggest case the FBI has ever touched, and you haven't personally reviewed all the files, what exactly are you avoiding? So while hammering home the incompetence Kash just confessed to, Eric plants the seed that maybe this ignorance isn't accidental, essentially activating the other horn of the double bind.
Buck stops at the top, and your testimony today is you have not reviewed all the files.
What I've been doing is been busy providing the safest country this country has seen in modern U.S. history in historic speed, because the men and women of the FBI are given the resources to reduce the homicide rate, to reduce the drug trafficking rate, to reduce the amount of children that are being trafficked and the number of...
How blatant. Kash pivots immediately to institutional cheerleading, transforming a simple yes or no question about whether he reviewed the files into a patriotic boast about national crime statistics. He was asked, "Did you read the documents?" and responded with, "Look at how safe America has become under my watch." A maneuver so abrupt, it borders on theatrical.
Providing the safest country this country has seen in modern U.S. history.
This represents Kash's main defense throughout the exchange, and it will grow increasingly obvious and desperate as we continue. It's a breed of our favorite fish, the red herring, when someone introduces an unrelated point to distract from the original issue. It's a maneuver that many people recognize in everyday life. You tell an older relative, "I can't afford rent, my job barely covers the bills, how can anyone expect me to live like this?" And they reply, "Well, when I was younger, I was able to buy a house. That's great, sure, but it has nothing to do with your rent check, does it? Being able to buy a house in the 70s doesn't really deal with your current financial situation." The response from Kash works the same way. The question concerns his direct examination of one of the most deplorable cases in Bureau history.
Buck stops at the top, and your testimony today is you have not reviewed all the files.
His answer concerns supposed broad institutional achievements.
What I've been doing is been busy providing the safest country this country has seen in modern U.S. history.
The shift is abrupt, it's irrelevant, and designed to pull the discussion into safer ground.
Because the men and women of the FBI are given the resources to reduce the homicide rate, to reduce the drug trafficking rate, to reduce the amount of children that are being trafficked and the number of...
The safest country boast functions as rhetorical smoke, inviting the listener to applaud institutional success instead of noticing the glaring absence of an answer. It's not just irrelevant, it's a deliberate substitution of patriotism for accountability. Clap, won't you, for the FBI's work reducing homicides, and maybe you'll forget to ask whether the director bothered to review the files implicating his own boss in trafficking. To make matters even worse, the claim itself cannot be verified. I mean, Kash assumed the FBI directorship on February 20, 2025, and given that full national crime data for 2025 is not yet available, Any assertion that his leadership has already produced historic safety levels is either pure fabrication or an appeal to data that the public simply doesn't have access to.
In the safest country this country has seen in modern US history.
And given the lack of trustworthy figures in the administration, a sentiment that they themselves stoked with their deep state narratives, it's hard to take Kash at his word.
That cannot happen unless it's coordinated by the deep state.
Furthermore, just to cover all of the bases here, crime in the United States was trending downwards for decades before this administration, long preceding both Kash's appointment and Trump's return to office. 2024's data showed significant declines in violent and property crime, so attributing those trends to Kash's 7-month tenure lacks even the faintest evidentiary support. So what we're left with is a political boast masquerading as a substantive response, a redirection so brazen that it assumes the audience won't notice the substitution. And here's the thing, that assumption isn't always wrong. The theatrical confidence, the appeal to shared pride in national safety,
In the safest country this country has seen in modern US history.
the invocation of FBI agents working tirelessly to protect children,
Because the men and women of the FBI are given the resources.
all of it creates an emotional atmosphere that makes challenging the non-answer feel like attacking the institution itself.
Well, it sounds like those children being trafficked would appreciate the director reviewing the files. You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not
the
released
number at least
anyone's
be 1,000
name.
Eric completely ignores the homicide diversion that Kash desperately wants to pivot to, a smart move, and, quite ingeniously, attacks Kash's savior framing by invoking those children being trafficked, transforming Kash's moral shield into a moral indictment. It is brilliant.
Well, it sounds like those children being trafficked would appreciate the director reviewing the files.
Throughout this hearing, Kash has positioned himself as a protector of victims, but Eric takes that exact framework and flips it. If Kash truly cared about children, wouldn't he want to review every file personally? The implication cuts deep. Kash's failure to examine the documents directly harms the victims that he claims to protect. Then, Eric escalates with a hypothetical.
You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The figure is deliberately absurd, and Eric knows it, but it serves as yet another double bind. If Kash agrees with 1,000 times, he admits catastrophic negligence. How could Trump's name appear 1,000 times without the FBI director reporting it? Yet, if Kash denies it, he exposes specific knowledge that contradicts his earlier claim of ignorance, with either path reinforcing the impression of deliberate concealment. Now, notice what Kash does in response. He claims,
The number is a total misleading factor.
which is frankly bizarre. Numbers are typically the least misleading kind of evidence. They're concrete, they're verifiable. Calling them misleading signals that the actual data is damaging. It's a preemptive frame designed to delegitimize the question before Eric can press further. But Kash doesn't stop there. He pivots immediately.
We have not released
number at least
anyone's
be 1,000
name.
You see, I said that he likes those fish, didn't I? Here's another red herring slapping us in the face. The issue at hand isn't whether the FBI has released the names publicly, it's whether Kash has personally reviewed the files and what he knows about its contents. By invoking confidentiality, he shifts the frame from his individual accountability to bureaucratic policy, with the question of his knowledge vanishing behind a procedural smokescreen. It sounds responsible, even protective of due process, while quietly abandoning the core question that Eric asked.
We have not released
number at least
anyone's
be 1,000
name.
times.
We have not released anyone's
Could it
name in the
at least
Epstein
be
files
1,000
that
times?
has not been credible.
Director,
And
could it at
we have
least be 1,000
released
times?
every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
You can
so-
characterize the numbers however you want it.
Despite his red herrings getting him nowhere, Kash throws out yet another. He's now deployed this tactic 3 consecutive times, with each deflection landing on a different but equally irrelevant point. Credibility standards, legal permissibility, release completeness. None of these address the core question, do they? How many times does Trump's name appear? Of course, Kash won't confirm any threshold. To this administration, the number itself is protected information, but his refusal to engage exposes that boundary more clearly than any admission could. I mean, if Trump's name appears once or twice, Kash could simply say so and diffuse the entire line of questioning. Well, pretty much. The fact that he won't engage with even 1,000 times
suggests the real number is damaging enough that Kash can't risk engaging with specifics at all.
Okay,
You can
so-
characterize the numbers however you want it.
This is Kash's most desperate attempt yet to thwart this line of questioning.
and it escalates beyond simple deflection, reframing Eric's persistence as the problem rather than Kash's own evasion. The condescending tone insists that Eric is being unreasonable or manipulative for asking the same question repeatedly, when in reality, that's exactly what you do when someone won't give you a straight answer. Basically, Kash is flipping the script. Instead of him being evasive, Eric becomes obsessive. Instead of Kash dodging accountability, Eric becomes the one characterizing numbers irresponsibly. It's a subtle but effective reversal. Suddenly, Eric has to defend asking a legitimate question 3 times, rather than Kash having to explain why he won't answer it. But instead, and as we'll see, Eric resets the frame.
Okay,
You can
so-
characterize the numbers however you want it.
Claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
leads me-
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Eric resets the narrative by claiming his time and reissuing the double bind. If Kash accepts any of the numbers, he admits negligence. If he denies them, he reveals knowledge that contradicts his claim of ignorance. Earlier, Kash tried to throw out a red herring, but that only forced Eric to restate the question, further exposing the evasion.
It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times.
Now, Kash drops the evasiveness altogether and opts for flat denial, activating the other horn of the double bind, signaling that he does know more than he previously claimed.
It's not.
leads me-
It's not.
Eric presses the advantage, stepping methodically down the ladder. 1,000, 500, 100, each narrowing the scope.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
With every no, Kash walks further into the trap, until finally it snaps shut.
Then what's the number?
Eric no longer needs to ask if Kash knows. With the denial of 1,000, again deliberately absurd to get Kash to bite, Eric can now ask what the number is, demanding disclosure. Kash can't have it both ways. Either he's reviewed the files enough to know that Trump's name doesn't appear 1,000 times, 500 times, 100 times, in which case he's concealing information, or he genuinely hasn't reviewed them, in which case he has no basis for these denials. Put bluntly, Kash is now forced to choose between incompetence and lying under oath. He can't claim knowledge of what the number isn't and simultaneously claim a lack of knowledge of what it is. Yet, he does, indeed, try to occupy both of these positions.
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
This response has just sealed his own fate. I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. The FBI director just claimed that he doesn't know the number while simultaneously insisting he knows what it's not. Now, you might be thinking that there's nothing wrong with this. After all, you can reasonably deny extreme figures without knowing a precise count. If someone was to ask me how many emails I received last month, I couldn't tell you exactly. But I'd confidently say that it wasn't 10,000. But here's what makes Kash's situation different. He's already admitted that he hasn't thoroughly reviewed the files. So, what's his basis for this confidence? He denied 1,000, 500, 100, each with equal certainty. Yet, when Eric asked, "What's the number?" he suddenly retreated to ignorance. That's not approximate knowledge. That is selective deployment of certainty. Ignorance when accountability is demanded. Confidence when deflection is needed.
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Kash positions himself as protecting the vulnerable. Instead, we're seeing him protect Trump from an accusation of extensive connections to the most disgusting scandal of our time. Now, notice what happened in the broader structure here. Eric didn't begin with a narrow question. He established a limitation first. Kash hasn't thoroughly reviewed the files.
Your testimony today is you have not reviewed all the files.
Then use that administration as a launchpad for escalation.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
By the time Eric reached "what's the number?", Kash had already issued several denials that unintentionally committed him to a position requiring prior knowledge. This broader trap didn't spring in one moment. It formed through incremental confinement, each answer shrinking Cash's room to maneuver until only contradiction remained. Make no mistake, this was superb rhetorical engineering. Eric's earlier double binds had already damaged Cash. This sequence weaponizes those concessions, turning them into a cage that Cash simply can't escape.
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is to provide for the safety and security of this country. My job is not to engage in political innuendo.
Eric's question lands with deceptive gentleness.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
But the structure is ruthless. Guess what this is? Go on. Ah, you've got it. It's another double bind. A yes from Cash would concede that he's been negligent, that he should know how many times Trump's name appears but simply doesn't. A no admits indifferent to oversight, that tracking Trump's connections isn't part of his job as an FBI director. He needs to look the other way. Both responses affirm Eric's frame. Cash has failed, utterly and abysmally, in his duty of accountability.
My job is to provide for the safety and security of this country. My job is not to engage in political innuendo.
Alright, so I think at this point you all recognize a red herring, right? But did you also catch how Cash characterized Eric's inquiry as political innuendo?
My job is not to engage in political innuendo.
This is a circumstantial ad hominem, when someone dismisses an argument by pointing to a speaker's circumstances, motives, or background, rather than addressing the argument itself. It's the "you're only saying that because" move. Consider a scenario where you're discussing rising inequality and the need to reform our tax system, and someone responds, "You're only complaining because you don't have a job." Your employment status has nothing to do with whether inequality is real or taxes need to be reformed, but attacking you for supposed bias is easier than engaging with the actual issue. Here, Eric asked about professional oversight responsibilities.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
Cash responded by attacking Eric's supposed political agenda.
My job is not to engage in political innuendo.
You see how that works? The maneuver serves dual purposes, deflecting scrutiny under the cover of principle while preemptively delegitimizing any further probing as mere politics.
Cash has spent years framing Democrats like Eric as partisan operatives rather than legitimate overseers, so this dismissal
isn't accidental. So when Eric asked a straightforward factual question, Cash could dismiss it as exactly the kind of attack that he warned about.
On day one, roll out the black book.
1 million, zillion, jillion, dillion, cotillion times later.
I have reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
there you have it, the complete dismantling of a witness. But let's step back and appreciate the artistry of what Eric Swalwell accomplished. He opened with an impossible choice, a double bind. Did you close the files or keep reading, forcing Cash to choose between admitting willful ignorance or concealed knowledge?
Director, the first time you saw Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files. Did you close the files or keep reading?
He transformed vague evasions into concrete admissions, stripping away the bureaucratic fog until Cash had to admit, on record, that he hadn't reviewed the files.
I have reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
you haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files?
He used Cash's own moral posturing against him, flipping protecting children into an indictment of Cash's failure to review the evidence about their traffickers.
To reduce the amount of children that are being trafficked and the number of pedophiles.
It sounds like those children being trafficked appreciate the director reviewing the files.
He methodically descended the numerical ladder, 1,000, 500, 100, tightening the parameters with each question until Cash walked himself into logical impossibility.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
And finally, he delivered the gentlest killing blow in congressional history, a polite question about professional responsibility that created yet another inescapable double bind.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
Throughout this exchange, Eric demonstrated exactly how to dismantle corruption through pure technique. This is what the double bind looks like in the hands of someone who truly understands it. It's simple and ruthless. Whichever answer you choose, you lose. The trap is already sprung the moment you respond. And Eric didn't just use one, he chained them. Every question posed forced Cash into the same inescapable pattern, concede one of the horns while trying to dodge it. Amazingly, in many moments, Eric managed to trigger both sides at once, tagging Cash as incompetent and corrupt in a single move. And once he extracted a confession, he built the next bind on top of it, tightening the noose again. And the beautiful part, at least for me, is how effortless he made it look. The repetition that Kash tried to point out as obsession was the strategy, and it worked perfectly.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Anyhow, as always, thank you kindly for the view, and an extra special thank you to everyone who supports the channel, including today's sponsor, Ground News. Without your backing on Patreon and the help of our sponsors, videos like this simply wouldn't exist. It takes a tremendous amount of time to research, write, record, and edit each one, and our team couldn't do it without you. On that note, if you're willing and able to support us, please do support us on Patreon. We've had quite a reduction as of late, probably because we've been changing our content up. Could really do with a boost. So if you can, help a brother out.